Hey seniors, this is Miss O'Connor. I'm doing my teacher model recording for the reading of page 9 and doing a close read for setting in A Streetcar Named Desire. So, the exterior of a 2-story corner building on a street in New Orleans is named Elysian Fields and runs between the L and N tracks. So first off, I've got that we're living in a city and that the neighborhood that we're in has tracks running through it. And so when I think tracks in a city, the first thing I think of always, anytime, is train tracks. And so that leads me to have a inference that this might be an economically poor or somehow in recently industrialized part of town. I also can see that there's this reference here. This is a cultural reference to a place called Elysian Fields. And from my research, I know that this is a Greek myth called the Land of the Dead. And it symbolizes like heaven or hell or some form of afterlife. So I'm going to go ahead and say that has kind of a negative connotation or foreshadowing even. I also know that this is taking place in New Orleans, and we know that New Orleans is a city. It's in the South, so it has that Southern culture. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick fact that this play is set in the 1950s. So we know it's kind of historical as well. The section of the city is poor, but unlike corresponding sections in other American cities, it has a raffish charm. This word raffish, I'm going to use the dictionary function. If I click on that dictionary function over in my toolbox and I highlight it, I'm going to see that raffish is unconventional and disreputable, but in an attractive way. So it has some sort of attractive charm to it despite being poor. The houses are mostly white frame, weathered gray. And so over here, I can see that my comment says that white to gray shows decay or rot. Something started off white and weathered, so it's getting older and it's not as well cared for. With rickety outside stairs and galleries and quaintly ornamented gables, this building contains 2 flats, an upstairs and a down. So this was once one large house that's been split into apartments. Again, it's showing us that there was once a wealthy family that lived here and that it's lost that wealth. This house now has multiple families that live close together. It's the first dark of an early evening in May. The sky that shows around the dim white building is a peculiar tender blue, almost a turquoise, which invests the scene with a kind of lyricism and gracefully attenuates that atmosphere of decay. So my thought from before also has that same connotation to it again, that there is both positive and negative mixed together here. There's something decaying, but it's still musical and graceful, has this positive quality to it. You could almost feel the warm breath of the brown river beyond the river warehouses with their faint redolence of bananas and coffee. A corresponding air is evoked by the music of Negro entertainers at a barroom around the corner. In this part of New Orleans, you are practically always just around the corner or a few doors down from a tinny piano being played with the infatuated fluency of brown fingers. This blue piano expresses the spirit of the life that goes on here. This blue piano is another cultural hint that I can see here. It's got this deep association for this author with like African American culture, and it's kind of like romanticizing it. And kind of marking this poor neighborhood with this cultural spirit of African American music. There are 2 women, one white and one colored, taking the air on the steps of the building. The white woman is Eunice, who occupies the upstairs flat. The colored woman is a neighbor, for New Orleans is a cosmopolitan city. where there is a relatively warm and easy intermingling of races in the old part of town. So we see here again that this idea that New Orleans is modern and multicultural, and that this author is including a racial element, this idea of mixing of races in a poor but culturally rich place, or the mixing of races introduces an urban and kind of modern element. Regardless, like we already know that this play was published in 1950, so this is pre-segregation. And we're going to see some problematic views about African American people. You can already see that he likes to use the word Negro, which is not something that's acceptable in culture today. So you can see the annotations that I've made for just this first page that introduces the setting. This is what leads me to then make my exemplar, which I'll show you next. You can see now that I've opened up the handout for this lesson. It says SnD Scene 1 handout. This also has your exit ticket on the 5th page. So the exit ticket has 3 questions in it, and I have an exemplar here. The exemplar question says, in Scene 1, how does Tennessee Williams reveal the setting of the play? And my response, based off of my annotations, is, in A Streetcar Named Desire, Williams uses music, color, and architecture to reveal how the neighborhood that Stella and Stanley live in is economically declining and poor, but still filled with a rich culture and an active community. So you can see that I've already indicated what elements of the text I would analyze in my evidence. I would talk about the blue piano, I talk about the color of the houses, and I talk about how the house has been split into 2 separate apartments to demonstrate how this was once a wealthy neighborhood that's fallen into poverty, and that poverty comes with a culturally rich element through music. You now are going to do these 3 questions for your exit ticket, where you're going to read for Blanche Dubois, which is going to be page 11 and 12. For Stella Kowalski, I believe that's going to be page 16. And for Stanley Kowalski is going to be page 29 and 30. You've crafted your claims about the characterization of these characters, write them into this handout, and then turn the handout in the assignment.